Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the pretty village of Great Wishford in Wiltshire. It lies on a bend of the River Wylye about 5 miles northwest of Salisbury, just off the A36. And we're going to be walking a 5-mile circular route, actually probably nearer 6 miles with all the detours. We'll have a look round the village before heading south along the Monarch's way to Groveley Wood, where we've got a lot of exploring to do, including looking out for some witches' trees and a World War II bunker. And then we'll come back down a ridge to return to the village. And we've certainly got plenty of things to see. Now, I'm filming in the middle of January. It's a bitterly cold day. It's about 0 degrees and there's a little bit of a wind chill. The sun is out and there's a fair bit of blue sky, but we're well wrapped up, but we need to keep moving to keep warm. Do come along with us. Well, we'll start off with a little wander through the village, and what a pretty village it is too. In fact, if you're going to be doing a walk here, do a little detour to have a look at the river. Now it's in full flow today and indeed flooded because we've had a fair bit of rain recently. There's a bridge called Stoford Bridge that goes over the River Wylye. The river's 28 miles long and the source is just to the south of Maiden Bradley, and it runs into the River Nadder at Wilton, which in turn flows into the River Avon, and then that carries on flowing south out to sea at Christchurch. There's a lovely bridge there. It dates from the 18th century, but it was rebuilt in 1841. I think it's got 5 arches and there's a weir below the bridge on the downstream side. Well, I'm just making my way down. I think it's called South Street, and there's the old post office in front of me, which I believe dates to the 17th century. And just bearing to the right, the magnificent church. The Church of St Giles. Now, there may well have been a church here in the 12th century or even earlier, but the first record of the present building was in 1207 when it was possibly a chapel, and it's been known as St Giles since 1386. And it consists of a nave, a chancel, west tower, south porch and a vestry. The nave was rebuilt in the 19th century. The chancel dates from the 13th century, and the south aisle and bottom of the tower was built in the 14th or 15th century. The tower was then heightened in the 16th century. There was a major restoration in 1863, 1864, but very much done in a 14th century style. And the vestry was rebuilt in 1955. I think it's got 6 bells. Well, there's a couple of interesting things to look at outside the church. Firstly, up there, looks like a medieval satellite dish, doesn't it? But I think it's a sundial. I'm not 100% sure how it works, because it seems to be pointing to the north. Well, I presume it must work. And then just on the wall was fascinating series of 9 breadstones, which record the price of bread between 1800 and the year 2000. Apparently during the Napoleonic Wars the country was blockaded by France and food prices rose substantially, and for some reason folk of Great Wishford were really affected more than others. For example, bread prices were 8 old pence higher here than in Newbury and something like 4 old pence higher than in Winchester. So in order to introduce some sort of transparency, the local baker posted the bread prices here. We'll have a quick peep inside the church. I'm pleased to say it's a lot warmer inside than outside. Just as we come through the door on the left-hand side, we've got the font with a 12th century bowl that sits on top of a 19th century base. And just on the right as we come in, look at this, isn't this terrific? It's an old coffin carrier that dates to 1922. It really is quite a beautiful little church. There's the organ on the right-hand side there. Then up to the chancel. Oh, what a terrific stained glass window above the altar. looking terrific in the morning sunshine. And there's the pulpit. Looks like they've still got the nativity scene in front of it. And my goodness, look here on the left, a couple of quite fascinating things to look at. Now, you don't expect to come across one of these in a church, do you? A fire engine. Apparently it's one of the oldest manual fire engines in the country. Originally there was no organised fire service locally, and so with a lot of timber houses in the village, it was certainly needed. And it was bought by the church wardens in 1728. The fire engine itself had only recently been invented by a chap called Richard Newsom a few years earlier. And it was still in use up to the early 20th century. I don't think it was actually usually stored in the church, but apparently it could pump something like 65 gallons a minute and needed 10 men to operate it. And it's made of wood, and it would have been horse-drawn. And then just to the right there's the parish chest, which was made in the 17th century, possibly from timbers from a Spanish Armada ship. I'm not 100% sure. A bit dark because the sun's still quite low this time of year. That's the old rectory, which dates to the 17th century. And goodness me, you can see the flooded river in the distance there, can't you? The water meadow's certainly full. Now, just on the western side of the church, a couple of interesting buildings. The one in front of me here, the Almshouses, built in 1628. I think it originally was 4 cottages. And then just next to it, in the shadow behind the trees, is the old school. The foundation stone was laid in 1722, and it was enlarged in 1896 and 1962, and it looks as though it's still a primary school today. Well, this magnificent house here is Wishford House, built in the 18th century with alterations in the 19th century. Really is quite stunning. Well, right at the southern end of the village, the Royal Oak pub. Now, there was a pub called The Tap that was opened here in 1822, but by 1848 it had been renamed the Royal Oak. But sadly for me, it was closed in September 2023. I think it's up for sale. Not 100% sure what the present situation is, but sad to see the tattered Wiltshire flag flying outside. Well, just before we head out into the countryside, I've just walked down Station Road, heading sort of easterly. A couple of things to look at. First is a lovely old milestone in front of me. And opposite, there's a field. And it's called Oak Apple Field. And there's a lot of history that's attached to it. Now, villagers here still claim rights to collect wood from Groveley Wood to the south. And back in 1603, a charter of rights to collect the wood in what was then a royal forest was confirmed by the Forest Court. Now, every year on the 29th of May, a band, basically villagers ringing bells and banging things, wake the villagers up early in the morning after gathering oak branches from the woods at dawn. There used to be a village breakfast in the Royal Oak. I don't know if they still have it now the pub's closed. And then the villagers would shoot off to Salisbury to the east, where they danced outside the cathedral before popping inside to claim their rights by singing Groveley, 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 all Groveley. Then they came back here to this field in the afternoon, and there were events for the villagers organised, such as a parade and a fete. Always here at the Oak Apple Field. Well, if you'd like to know a little bit more information about the Village Oak Day, do check out a video that's available on YouTube. I'll put the details and the link below. All sounds like a good excuse for a knees up for the village, if you ask me. And why not? And what a beautiful village it is too. Right, we need to warm up now and kick out into the countryside. So heading out of the village now, just past underneath a railway bridge, just behind me here. The railway still operational. The village used to have a station actually, built in 1856, but it closed in 1955. I think the station master's house is still here, but it's a private house. Now, with our route south towards Groveley Wood, we've got a choice really. We can either go along a sort of tarmac road, which is part of the Monarch's Way, or go along a bridleway, which is kind of like parallel to it. And we're feeling quite adventurous, so I think we'll go on the bridleway. Oh, it's certainly a fresh day, but I'm loving it. It really is quite beautiful, and the scenery around here, the rolling landscape, certainly blowing away a few cobwebs today. It's our first walk that we've videoed of the year, first one for nearly 2 months. I tend to use sort of end of November and all of December and a bit of January purely for doing all the research for forthcoming videos. The weather tends not to be that great. So at this moment in time, I've got something like 42 walks planned for 2024, all the research done. Just need some good weather now. I don't know about you, I could do with the rest. We're about halfway up our ascent, and there's a handy little seat here which is perfect, just to test it out for research purposes, of course, because the view down in the valley below really is quite spectacular. A lovely day to be out riding.
It is, very lovely.
Have a good one.
You too.
Well, just before we head into the woods, just look back to the north, show you where we've been. We've just followed this bridleway along the side of a field. In fact, just as I pan over to the left, this is over to the west, or it looks like I think that's the ambulance helicopter over there. Anyway, just over to the left here, this is the side of Ebsbury Hill. And well, there was an Iron Age enclosure here, indeed a separate Iron Age hill fort, followed by a sort of Romano-British settlement later. Although there's quite a few earthworks here, it's all been ploughed over, but you can make out a few ditches. It really is quite peaceful in this bit of the woodland. Not too muddy either, for the simple reason that the ground is rock hard. In fact, look, yeah, you can see there's that a bit of frost, or even the remnants of some snow. We had a few flurries last night. Of course, with the leaves off the trees, it's all open. You can see quite deep into the woodland either side of the track. You get a totally different perspective of woodland in the winter, don't you? Well, a quick update on the route. We've made our way through the northern part of the wood. I think I'm finished with all the uphill bits now because I'm on the top of a ridge. We rejoin the Monarch's Way, which is that 625-mile long distance path that winds its way from Worcester all the way over to Bristol and then Yeovil and Shoreham. It represents the escape route of King Charles II after his defeat at the Battle of Worcester in 1651. Anyway, we will be heading eastwards along the top of this ridge, along what was a Roman road. But before we do, I'm going to do a bit of a detour to the west. We've got something to explore in that direction. So this little detour to the west, I'm following a track, dead straight track. Yes, it's a Roman road, but it's also tar-macadammed because, in the Second World War, Oakley Farm to the west of here was an RAF ordnance depot, and it was also used by the US Army Air Force as an ammunition depot leading up to D-Day. And basically bombs and shells were stacked here in the woods and fuses were stored in bunkers and huts. The tree canopy here would have provided perfect cover. And the railway station at Wylye, that's no longer there, used to transport the ammunition to and from here. Now, I need to keep my eyes peeled for a Second World War bunker. Aha! I have found the bunker. It's certainly well hidden. Probably didn't help that I was looking on the wrong side. I thought it was on the south side of the track, but it's actually on the north side of the track. And it looks as though you can go inside. So what I'll do is I'll get my little flashlight out and see what we can see. Right, let's have a little investigation. You'll notice that I sent Logan in first. Wow, it's certainly well preserved. And presumably this was a little escape hatch up there. Imagine, so it must be, 80 odd years old now? And so it's probably used for storage. Yeah, Logan's keen to get out. Well, I'm glad I found that bunker. I was getting a bit worried for a minute. Right, so I'm now going to retrace my steps back along the Roman road, heading eastwards, because there's some more things to try and find. While I'm continuing to head eastwards along the Roman road, and just on the right hand side, I don't know if you can see, there's a definite ditch and a bank, and if you look at an old map, it'll tell you that's Grimm's Ditch, which is an ancient earthworks, and folks aren't 100% sure what the exact purpose of it was, because it wasn't large enough to be anything defensive, but it may just have marked out a territorial boundary or be a safe route, but it would have been constructed possibly in the Bronze Age originally, and then bits used by the Romans. The grim is actually a Saxon word. Well, folks, this is what I've been trying to find for the last 10 minutes or so, and this is the first of the witch's trees. Now hopefully you can see it because, well, it's about 2:30 now and the light's beginning to go. But as you can see, it's got little trinkets all over it. And, well, there's a story to tell. There were 4 sisters, the 4 Hansel sisters, Danish originally, but they moved to the Wiltshire area, which is just to the east of here. And in 1737 there was an outbreak of smallpox that killed 132 people. And locals were convinced that the sisters were responsible for the deaths, and they accused them of witchcraft. Without trial or any hearing, the sisters were brought here to Grovely Wood and murdered, and they were buried a little way from each other so they couldn't conspire against the murderers. 4 beech trees were either planted to mark their graves, or mysteriously they grew up on top of the unmarked graves to remind the locals of their dreadful deed. And apparently ghostly sightings of the sisters have been reported over the years. And I believe that one of the trees is now blown down, so there's only 3 left. Well, I found the 3rd of the witch's trees, and clearly this is the largest one. What a smashing specimen it is as well, but amazing the number of trinkets and offerings or whatever you call them that have been left dangling on all the branches there, and also at the base of the tree itself. It's quite a sort of mystical, magical atmosphere to the place. Obviously it means a lot to a number of people. And look over here as well. Someone's even left a pair of sunglasses, and why not? Well, I'll tell you, those trees were quite something special, weren't they? Right, we're very much on the homeward leg now. We're going to pick up a bridleway that'll take us north, going downhill back to the village. Another lovely, peaceful bit of woodland on this last stretch. Probably only got about another hour of daylight. The temperature really is starting to plummet now. You can see the ice on the branches on the ground there. I mean, the sun's still out, but there's no strength in it at all. But it's been a super day for walking though. Great to be back out in the countryside. Wow. How about that for a view to finish off the walk with as we drop down into Great Wishford. And there's the ridge that we walked up originally on the far side. Well folks, we've come to the end of our walk. As the sun starts to set, we thought we'd do the end scene here in Grovely Wood, not far from one of the witch's trees. We hope you enjoyed the walk today. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out my Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. Well, sadly, no pub to go to today, which is a shame because some hot soup would have been perfect, but there you go. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Good boy. Oh. Will that be a blooper?